virtue is a habit. It's a thing that comes naturally to choose the good. The way that I like to put it is it's the instinct that to the good that doesn't necessarily just happen with a snap of a finger. In some areas of my life, I really like Christopher West's nuance here where he said, most of us in this room right now, I was at a talk, have the virtue, I don't know what the name of it would be, but where I don't need the commandment that says thou shalt not murder. So I'm virtuous there. It's my instinct not to go kill everybody. So got that one. But there might be a loss or a lack or a void of virtue in some other domain, whether that be lust or gluttony or anger or whatever. So am I right there, Christin, that it's the consistent habit?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the most sort of simple, fundamental definition of virtue that I know, is just that it's a good habit. But if you understand the Thomistic anthropology, you understand what that includes.
Okay.
It necessarily includes a choice of the will that is in line with God's will, and that the beliefs are in line with those things, that the intellect is formed in the truth as God sees it, good as God defines it. God doesn't just define good as your house is clean and you can have people over on short notice.
Very
God
good.
defines
Yeah.
good as our eternal salvation. And so again, getting those beliefs in line with the truth, our actions becoming habituated to the good. And in order to do that, it presupposes that our emotional life is conducive to that. It starts to permit it. It starts to allow the intellect to reason freely and the will to act freely. And then again, that the sailboat, everything's working together and it's taken off.
Can you have a virtue and have a ton of emotions that resist the virtue? Or are you still in the process of becoming virtuous?
That you would still be in the process of becoming virtuous.
Okay.
I mean, that act might be,
In line.
a virtuous act, but you're not virtuous in performing it if your soul is full of resentment and anger and bitterness and, all of this.
Okay. I think that gets confused for people. They're like,
Yeah.
look how virtuous I'm being. And then they leave the thing they were virtuous. And then on the car ride home, they're just ripping the person to shreds, No, I'm not talking about myself at all. I promise.
Well, so that's the sailboat with the rudder set.
Okay.
And the sails, a certain direction, but the wind is coming from another place, and so the boat's not going where it needs to go. It's not making any progress.
But help me understand, because in that case, it is in one setting. I was nice to maybe the person that irritates me, but internally, I don't want anything to do with them. To you,
Right.
what's
So,
that?
and there again, so maybe you get a gust of wind that just happens to be in the right direction
There we
and you
go.
make some progress with your boat, but now the wind changes and so under just the perfect circumstances, you're acting virtuously and you're feeling, your feelings are on board with that, but you change any of those variables, you get outside your comfort zone and you cannot generalize that virtue. So
Yeah.
it's not as much of a virtue as it really,
I don't know if this
as you would think.
Yeah, I don't know if this resonates with you guys, but the analogy that's really helping me with the boat is I can visualize myself being virtuous and I am working my tail off. I am holding onto the rudder as hard as I possibly can. I'm repeating to myself, go this way, go this way. And the wind is all because I'm trying to manage the wind not going in the right direction, but I'm like gritting myself through it. And in my life, what that leads to is the virtuous act isn't consistent. It doesn't last very long because I'm white knuckling,
So immediately springing to mind here is Saint Teresa of Avila's flower garden, and the way that she's talking about it in the context of prayer, but you could apply it as well to the exercise of the virtues. When you start out, it's a lot of effort. You gotta crank that winch and get that bucket up from that well, and it takes a long time, and you don't get very much water out. But the virtues are the flowers. in that garden. And as we grow, as we order our faculties, as we heal emotionally, as we form our intellect, all of these things get easier. And now there's a pump, and all you have to do is work the handle. And at the highest levels of virtue, we're just sitting there and it's raining. And that's what's watering the garden. God's doing all the work for us. He has perfected our souls so much that all we have to do is receive.
Bob, what's coming up for you here?
I'm having a lot of different thoughts, but I like that description of the difference between white knuckling it and sometimes that there is a process to overcome the barriers. I was thinking about your example being like maybe your intellect's in the right direction, your rudder's in the right place, and there's a gust of wind that's different than the normal pattern of the wind. And so it throws you, and you have to really be steady on the rudder and keep in that direction. And it takes more effort. And then you have to adjust the wind, the sail a little bit to get in the right place. But then the sailing becomes easy again, as opposed to what you're talking about, which is, there's this gust of wind and I keep my rudder there, but then my rudder goes all over the place afterwards, and my direction
and you go in
goes
circles.
Yeah.
I think the way that we've typically described, the way that I've thought about this before has been, it's good enough if the outside is virtuous, and then you go and look at Jesus's words, like to a T. He says that's not like you can clean the outside of the cup, but you're still whitewashed tombs. That principle is a really important principle with regard to healing. So you could do an act on the outside that looks good, but your soul is still dead. And the irony there is he's talking to the Pharisees. I think something that we have to be really careful of as Christians, particularly as Catholics, that's me, I'll convict myself and my brothers and sisters who are Catholic, the integration that's required by Jesus Christ and the church himself says the outward behavior alone is inadequate. That is not enough. And if you proclaim it to be enough, you are modeling yourself exactly after a Pharisee, who Jesus had some strong words for. Yeah. So this is why the definition of healing to me is so important, to really get it.
And at the same time, it's important that when we have all the storms going on in our hearts, that we still direct our intellect and our will in the right direction as we work on those storms in our heart.